The global grid. Please use How Does Global Grid PowerPoint notes along with this presentation. First, we start with the circle. This is going to represent the Earth. Next, we are going to add the North Pole. So please label yours with the North Pole. Then, we're going to add the South Pole. The South Pole is in the southernmost part of the globe. Next, draw a line across the center of your globe. These are lines of latitude. They run east and west across the world. This line that is drawn is the equator. It is at 0 degrees latitude. Please draw the equator on your globe and label it. Lines of latitude run north and south of the equator. Here we have 30 degrees north. Typically, they are drawn in increments of 15 to 30 degrees north and south of the equator. Please label 30 degrees north. And when we go south, that will be 30 degrees south. Please draw and label 30 degrees south. Then we can add 60 degrees north and 60 degrees south. Let's take a look at longitude. Lines of longitude run north and south along the globe. North to south. This is the prime meridian. Draw a line through the center of your circle. This is 0 degrees longitude, which is the prime meridian. Please label your globe with the prime meridian. Longitude. Longitude are typically drawn in increments of 15 to 30 degrees. What that means is one map might show it at 10 degrees, one might show it at 30 degrees, but typically it's somewhere between the range of 15 and 30 degrees. These run north and south of the equator. So let's label 30 degrees west, and then 30 degrees east, 60 degrees west, 30 degrees east, and there we have lines of longitude. And together, these make the global grid. Lines of latitude are in red, and lines of longitude are in blue, and together they make the global grid. The Earth is round or circular, so it has 360 degrees, which is divided into hemispheres of 180 degrees. The hemispheres include the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, the western hemisphere, and the eastern hemisphere. So if we went to our equator line here in the center, if we went to the north, this entire half of the Earth would be considered the northern hemisphere. If we went back to our equator at 0 and we went south, this entire half of the Earth would be considered the southern hemisphere. Now if we went to our line of longitude, the prime meridian at 0 degrees, and we went to the right or to the east, this would be the eastern hemisphere. And again, back to the prime meridian at 0, if we go to the left or west, this would be our western hemisphere. Let's practice using some lines of longitude and latitude coordinates. All right, here we have 15 degrees north. So start at your equator and we go to 15 degrees north. Then we would go 30 degrees north. Then we would go 45, 60, and if we were to add up here, we would just add 15. That would be 75. This is in increments of 15. Now let's go to the west. 15 degrees to the west, 30, 45, 60. Now, here is the star of the coordinates. I would like for you to find the coordinates for this star. So we're going to start at 0 and 0. It looks like we're going up to 45 degrees north, and then we are going to 45 degrees west. 45 degrees north, 45 degrees west. All right? What about if we look at this one? We've gone up 30 degrees north. We haven't labeled these, but I bet you can figure it out. This will be 15, this will be 30, and we are going east. So here we have 30 degrees north, 30 degrees east. Okay, let's try another one. We haven't labeled, so now we're going below the equator or south. So we went 15, 30 south, and let's go 15, 30 to the west. 30 degrees south, 30 degrees west. All right, how about this one? We are going south, and we went 30 degrees south. Then we're going 15, 30, 45 to the east. 15 degrees south, 45 to the east. Let's investigate relationships between latitude and climate. Besides helping you locate places on Earth, knowing about latitude can help you understand some things about climate. So we'll start with our equator, and we're going to build some lines along that. So we're going to label the Arctic Circle, the Antarctic Circle, the Tropic of Cancer, and the Tropic of Capricorn. And then we're going to see how these create climate zones. So the Arctic Circle is at about 66 degrees north. So please add that to your map. The Antarctic Circle is about 66 degrees to the south. Please add that. Next, we have the Tropic of Cancer. The Tropic of Cancer is about 23 degrees north. Please add that to your notes. Okay, and then finally we have the Tropic of Capricorn, which is approximately 23 degrees to the south. So now that we've drawn these lines, we're going to see how they create three special climate zones on Earth. First, we have the polar zone. This is the blue color that you see, and it's going to be very cold in the polar zone. Cool to bitterly cold. Next, we have the tropical zone here in yellow. And in the tropical zone, it's going to be nice and hot. Notice that it is located close to the equator. So these are typically our hotter areas. So it's good to understand that when we're studying latitude and longitude, because if you find something in this range of latitude, you're going to know that those are tropical areas, which typically are hot. Okay, and then our last one, we're going to add in with the green. And these areas typically have hot summers, cold winters, moderate spring and fall. So that would be like where we live in the United States. Our temperatures change from summer to winter to spring and fall. In which zone do you think most of the world's people live? Why? What would make sense here? Where do you think most people in the world live? Probably in the temperate zone, because the weather is changing. What challenges would the polar zone present to people? So if we lived up here in the polar zone where it's very cold, what challenges do you think would come from living there? It's very cold. It would be hard to grow things, the way you dress, types of food you eat, or hunting for food. Do you think any people live in the polar zone? Why or why not? How could you find out? So if these are our polar zones, how could you find out if they are being inhabited? Could you refer to the internet to search life in the polar zones? What challenges would the tropical zone present to people? So here we have the tropical zone. What problems would people possibly face if they lived in the tropical zone? Are there places where it's too hot? Is it really hot to live near the equator? Is it so dry that it affects the way vegetation can grow? So maybe they're not as grassy areas. Do you think it's possible that we might find some of our deserts in this area because of that? Do you think any people live in the tropical zone? Why or why not? And how could you find out? Again, coming back to the area in yellow. Can people live in this area? What modifications would they have to make if they do live in this area? How could we find out? Could we go do some research to find out what people, if any people, are living in this area? All right. What are two other factors besides latitude that could affect climate? One thing is being near large bodies of water. Being near water can affect climate. We'll look at this further when we discuss climate. Elevation. Elevation, or being higher in the mountains, can affect the climate. All right, where is it? Determining absolute location. Let's do a little review here. Here's our global grid. We have lines of latitude plus lines of longitude equals the global grid. You can use the global grid to identify an absolute location of a place. Lines of latitude give us some idea of the effects on climate. This was the global grid.